Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos. I'm Anita, and I use the pronouns she, her, and I'm today's worship associate. Wherever you are, whomever you love, whatever your image of the holy, wherever you are in your life's journey, you're welcome here. If this is your first time with us, we'd love to get to know you. Please sign in our guest book at the foyer. For kids here in our service, we have an activity table up here at the front. You can stay seated with your parents or up here. Just remember to use your whisper voices. If you would like to know more about our programs for the youth, please speak to Elizabeth Portillos, our Director of Faith Formation. We also have a nursery down the hall for younger kiddos, and Sarah Hamoud, our nursery coordinator, can check in your younger ones. We have our candles of community over here on the right and in the back, and you're invited to light for anybody you'd like to. There's also a book if you'd like to have a prayer written in there so we can read it to the congregation.
Good morning. We come together as a community every Sunday to pause and to worship together. Worship creates connections within, among, and beyond us, calling us to live with wisdom and compassion, calling us to be our better selves. Our worship theme for this Sunday's worship is truth-telling. Our call to worship this morning comes from the classical Sanskrit poet and playwright Kalidasa. Kalidasa writes, "Look to this day, for it is life, the very life of life. In its brief course lie all the verities and realities of your existence, the bliss of growth, the glory of action, the splendor of beauty. For yesterday is but a dream, and tomorrow is only a vision. But today, well lived, makes every yesterday a dream of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope. Look well, therefore, to this day. And now come, let us worship together."
So we have Clea here. I hope I'm saying your name right. Okay, good. And she likes to crochet. May our words be clear but kind. May we be able to sort the truth from the spin and have the courage to ask questions when answers are unclear. May we look beyond fear, anger, and distraction and speak with honesty and compassion. When truth is hidden behind confusion, may we ask for clarity. When we are uncertain, may we pause, reflect, and learn. May clear thinking guide our choices, and may our commitment to speaking the truth strengthen us. Thank you. That was beautiful. Our reading this morning is an excerpt from the book Fierce Love by Reverend Jacqui Lewis. She writes, over time, I've come to understand that being honest is an essential building block in my self-love. To learn to love myself, I had to gaze upon myself honestly. I couldn't love what was out of view or what was unspoken about myself. I needed to know myself authentically in order to appreciate myself. A facade or a persona is too fake to love. The first truth in self-love is, I am enough. You are enough. This truth refutes any lie that implies you are not. Of course, we all deceive ourselves from time to time. Perhaps we don't want to face difficult truths, or we can't access deeply hidden truths. We've chosen not to dig out the truth because we don't really want to see it. We can fear what the truth will show us, so we can tell ourselves a false story, and we can make choices, often poor ones, from the place of the lie. But when we tell the truth about ourselves, about our experiences, about our needs, we are acting out of self-love. Being truthful just isn't about what we say, it's about how we move in the world, how we will be. Energy that is bound up in hiding, pretending, and lying can be used for deep love of self and love of neighbor.
I'm Reverend Jenny Amstutz, and I'm here visiting the second week in a row from Littleton, Colorado, where I serve Columbine UU Church. In early 2018, I was exploring seminaries with a dream of earning my Master's of Divinity so I could become a UU minister. Iliff School of Theology in Denver held a prospective students event with an interfaith worship service led by a famous liberal Christian preacher, Reverend Dr. Jacqui Lewis. Here's my prop, her book that I read and wrote this sermon inspired by this book. Now, I didn't know who Reverend Dr. Jacqui Lewis was going into that service, but by the end of it, I felt like I understood more fully why preachers exist. Reverend Jacqui really preached the roof off that Iliff Chapel, and I left that service energized and inspired. I was charged up and ready for battle, ready to stand up for people in the margins and social justice and a more humane and inclusive world. Wasn't it cute that back in 2018 we thought the world was on fire then? We were so innocent back then. 2018 was like a little tea light fire compared to the blazing inferno that we have today. But after that worship service at Iliff at lunch, I was a bit of a fangirl, and I said, Reverend Jacqui, you are so clearly doing what you were born to do with your gifts. And honestly, Jacqui Lewis already knows that. She knows she's good at what she does, and that she proclaims a message of truth. And she knows the truth isn't always what people want to hear. She knows that speaking the truth is not always the safest route, especially for her. She is a black woman married to a white man. She's a public figure. She has a big presence on social media and television and the church she serves, Middle Collegiate Church in New York City. Reverend Jacqui's power lies in the fact that she isn't afraid to speak the truth, and she doesn't back down. Middle Collegiate Church, is now called Middle Church, was founded in 1628 by Dutch reformers, and it's one of the oldest churches in this country. Today, Middle Church has over 1,400 members from 48 states and 22 countries. And not unlike Unitarian Universalism, members of their historically Christian church identify as Buddhist, Muslim, Jewish, atheist, agnostic, and various flavors of Christianity. They call themselves, quote, a social justice hub rooted in fierce love. Middle Church is an inspiration and an example of what is possible for a liberal, diverse, social justice-oriented religious community. Reverend Jacqui draws people from far and near because of her conviction, her charisma, and her truth. People can feel her integrity and they gravitate towards it. They show up and they get involved in the work of that multicultural, diverse, vibrant community. Reverend Jacqui just published this book, Fierce Love, and in it she writes that she believes, like we do, that our power comes from centering love in everything we do. This idea of love isn't fluffy or sweet or tame or wimpy. It's not insipid or submissive. Instead, Reverend Jacqui roots her theology in what she calls fierce love. And fierce love is rooted in truth. Fierce love calls us to a higher standard of accountability, a shared covenant that calls us not just to honesty, but to courage. If we're paying attention to our UU covenant with love in the center, fierce love can manifest as power, hope, and healing. So why am I telling you about another preacher and another church today? Because I think it's good for us to learn about faith communities, particularly Christian churches, who are fighting the good fight and doing the work of love and inclusion. Middle Church is an example of what is possible for a religious community with love at the center and a heart for truth and social justice. They are fearlessly manifesting their liberal religious values in the wider world, and they are not shutting up. They are not hiding their light under a bushel. And right now, we need leaders like Jacqui Lewis. Many of us have been wondering, who's going to save us? Where does the power to restore justice and democracy lie in these harrowing times? We are watching before our eyes the rapid destruction of checks and balances, of sacred institutions set up to uphold democracy, to share our wealth and abundance with people in developing nations, to advance science, and to protect the freedom of all people, no matter where they were born or what they look like or who they love. We are witnessing the kidnapping, disappearance, and abuse of thousands of people and the complicity of the justice system. So who's going to save us? Can Bernie Sanders save us, or Robert Reich, or the 4 living former presidents, or AOC, or the courts, or the ACLU, or the Democrats, or the Green Party, or Michelle Obama, or Greta Thunberg, or how about Sesame Street? The answer to that question is yes. Yes to all of the above. We need all the voices, all the integrity, and all the courage from all the people who value justice and inclusion and compassion and the inherent worth and dignity of each and every human being. Because we are centered in love, we don't want to live in a monoculture. I don't want to live in a country where people who look and speak and everybody looks and speaks like I do and eats the same foods I do and worships the same way I do. What a sad and limited expression of humanity that would be. I not only value diversity and pluralism as a moral and ethical call of my UU faith, but I just like living in community with people who are different from me. We are all better for our exposure to different perspectives and cultures and experiences of our fellow human beings. And what a loss to people who fear diversity. We are enriched by the diversity of people around us, and now some of our neighbors are afraid to go outside, to fly in a plane, to visit their home places. One of my congregants back in Columbine, he and his husband fly back and forth to Mexico and Colorado, and we haven't been seeing him at worship lately. His husband comes, but Jaime is Mexican, and he is afraid to go back and forth and afraid to come to church when he's here in America. That's a huge loss. No matter what documentation people have or don't have, the color of some people's skin makes them vulnerable. And the thing is, even if some able-bodied, white, cisgendered, Christian-identified folks don't like diversity, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I don't care if some people don't like gay marriage or gender-affirming care or immigrants. This country was not built on what people like or feel comfortable with. It was built on the ideals of welcoming the stranger and ensuring life, liberty, and justice for all people. We have been called into action by the Constitution of the United States and by our covenant of shared values to protect the rights and freedom of each person, whether the people currently hoarding power like that or not. We are called by our faith to speak truth to power. We can't all be as famous and articulate as Reverend Jacqui, but each of us has a sphere of influence. And if we have the courage to be truth tellers, then we have the opportunity to use our power to bring about change, to shift the narrative. But in order to speak truth to power, first we must go out into the public square. Before we go out into the public square, we have to be right with ourselves. We have to be truth tellers in our own homes, in our families, and in our own minds, our own psyches. And that is not always the path of least resistance. Honesty is sometimes uncomfortable or embarrassing, but it's essential to being able to focus our power. If we're willing to be a little vulnerable or uncomfortable in our honesty, sometimes we might find that those are our most powerful moments. Last September, excuse me, nearly a year ago now, my dad passed away, and we had a funeral at the Catholic Church and his burial at Fort Logan National Cemetery. And afterwards, we had a reception at the church I serve, Columbine UU Church in Littleton. Now, I don't like speaking off the cuff. You'll notice I'm married to my little tablet here. I depend on my script to keep me on topic when I'm speaking, but at that reception, people were getting up to speak about my dad, and I got up and I shared a story off the cuff, and then a lot of other people spoke. My cousin Earl and my father-in-law played some music. We shared memories of my dad, and just as things were wrapping up, I felt compelled to share something a little more vulnerable. I didn't really know how it would land in my crowd of cousins that I don't see very often, and other family and friends, but something in me just called me to tell the truth, on the fly, in front of all these people I rarely see. I shared with them that in preparing for the reception, I'd spent a couple days looking through literally hundreds of family pictures. The photos span my dad's 86 years on the planet, from the late 1930s when he was a baby until the past few weeks before he passed away. And in remembering my dad, I realized there was a story I had been telling myself and others about him for most of my 55 years without ever questioning it. And that looking at the photos had inspired me to expand my truth about who my dad was in my life. I'd always told people that my dad was distant and not very engaged with family life. And that story is true. My dad never changed a diaper. He liked to watch 60 Minutes and PBS on TV, or Prairie Home Companion in the car turned up kind of loud, and we all had to be quiet. He wasn't the most huggy or affectionate dad. And if he was feeling affectionate, he'd punch you in the arm. That was his form of affection, say, "You're not a bad old kid." In my memory, my dad was there, but he wasn't really that interested in our kids, in his kids. Remember the 70s? Welcome to the 70s. But it's not fair to encapsulate my dad into that partial story, because the last couple years, my dad suffered from memory loss and hearing loss. And he frequently apologized for not being able to hear well or remember things. He became vulnerable, and he changed. He started to hug us hello and goodbye. He asked about the grandkids, even when he wasn't exactly sure which one was which, because he was losing his memory, but he really cared that everybody was okay. And with this new vulnerability, he became extremely adaptable. Once we pried him out of his house of almost 50 years, he adapted to his new life, creating new routines at my parents' independent living apartment, and then again 6 months later when they had to move to assisted living. My dad changed, but I hadn't changed my story yet. His death caused me to re-examine my version of truth and what story I tell about him, and I realized from looking at those pictures that my dad cared deeply about his family. I realized that he was there. And if I'm to be honest and true to his memory and his legacy, the truth is he loved us. And him being there was not nothing. I felt a bit exposed sharing that story at the reception with all the relatives. But the reason I chose to share my new truth about my dad with you today is that I realized that we cannot love fiercely and freely if we aren't able to expand our understanding of the truth. And that might mean that we change our stories. As we say in Unitarian Universalism, revelation is not sealed. We are always learning and growing and striving to do better. And the thing that makes being honest and maybe sometimes a bit vulnerable worth it is that it touches other people. I'm so glad those old family pictures helped me understand my dad better, so I didn't sell him short in my telling of who he was at the memorial. Seeing the pictures of my sister and I, like riding on his back and putting rollers in his hair, I thought, you know what? He was there for us. Our truth is constantly evolving. We are called to dig a little deeper, to use our senses and our reason and our experience, to keep questioning ourselves and the world around us, to keep asking, what is actually true? To keep wondering, what are we telling ourselves that doesn't encapsulate the whole truth and holds us back from being as powerful as we can be? Our call today is to be faithful and courageous in our pursuit of new understandings and open to truth, starting with ourselves and our own stories, and then radiating out into the world where the truth is waiting for us to speak it and live it. Truth-seeking and transformation will help us navigate the complexity of this hurting world that we are living in. Today, as we leave here, may we become truth tellers, starting with our own selves and our own stories, and then radiating out into the wider world. May we have the courage to seek truth and to speak truth. And may our courage add power to the fight for justice and freedom for all. Blessed be, and may it be so.